Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to the April edition of Molten Music Monthly. It's April, the weather doesn't quite know what it wants to do, but it seems to be shining, it seems to be trying to find some warmth out of our planet Earth, and we are now tantalisingly close to Superbooth, back in its original position in May. So undoubtedly next month is probably going to be a bit of a bonanza, but however, we have some exciting things to talk about this month. Oh yes we do. What's coming up? Well, ROLI are back with a more sensitive ribbed version. SMPLTrek takes on the portable groove box. FCPro wants to mix those synths. Norand gets morphological. Behringer ticks off another dozen synths. Arturia wants to augment your strings. Tom Oberheim is found dead after doing shots with Dave Smith from Sequential. No, not really. The Korg Volca FM2 is almost the DX7 you think it is. Feedback do some more Eurorack mixers. Create Audio has a nifty keyboard and a functional Junction. No. Stolperbeats is getting shifty. Elektron unleashes Syntakt. Mystic Circuits will help you produce more intelligent dance music. Teenage Engineering builds a mixer out of gold. Roland reinvents the Juno. DivKid strips in stereo. Tim Shoebridge PolyChains everything. And we say goodbye to Mutable Instruments. But first, Novation seem to have fallen out of love with Ableton Live. Can it be true? Can it be true? I mean, they've been the darlings of Ableton Live like forever. Ableton Live is what they do. We build keyboards, we build controllers, and it controls Ableton Live. It's all for Ableton Live. We love Live. We worship at the altar of Ableton Live. But no, they've been playing on the other side of the fence. They've got a bit polyamorous and have released a keyboard controller for FL Studio. Good Lord, what will become of us? I mean, before you know it, there'll be keyboards designed for Cubase and Bitwig and Studio One and things like that. It will be madness, chaos out there, and all of the cool people using Ableton Live are going to be going, but Ableton Live is all there is. Ableton Live. So yeah, this is the story that the Novation have released the FLKey for FL Studio, and it's a keyboard controller. It looks very much like one of their launch key controllers, but this one is designed for FL Studio. It will take control of things like the step sequencer. It will probably launch clips, I imagine, bit of mixing, transport control, that kind of thing. I think this is very healthy. I think Novation's Ableton Live obsession, and generally speaking most MIDI controllers' obsession with Ableton Live, is not entirely healthy, and it's good to see them branch out into something, you know, that has broader appeal, because not everyone is into Ableton Live. It's lovely, you know, we all love it, it's fantastic, it's, you know, don't worry about that, but some people also get creative in other bits of software, and so it's good to see a MIDI controller keyboard manufacturer acknowledging that and doing a little bit of work and pulling in some other bits of software. Good job. Sonicware has just announced the SMPLTrek, the vowelless sample trek, or is it track? Oh god, SMPLTrek portable groove station sampler thing. It's a bit like a Roland SP404. You know, that cool blocky slab of stuff that people like bashing around, making beats, you know, lo-fi, sampling, that kind of thing. And Sonicware have come up with their own version. Now, Sonicware, you may know, do the Liven boxes, those kind of peculiar. There's an FM one, there's a Beats one, there's a like a lo-fi 8-beat one, sort of boxes with buttons on it, groove boxes, crazy multi-channel, slightly weird but interesting. It has its own vibe going on. The Liven Sonicware groove boxes. So this is kind of in that vein, in that its design is slightly different. You know, it's straightforward, and they've really put a lot of thought into how people would use a portable device. So rather than sitting on your lap and bashing away like this, that's bashing away on a pad thing. I don't know. Maybe one uses one's fingers. Who knows? Anyway, but this one is, the idea is that you hold it in your hands and then your thumbs go around in a bit of a console controller style. The demo video for this is again, different. I mean, there's cultural differences. I mean, this is coming in from Japan, although of course Roland is Japan. But the SP404 is full of this gritty, lo-fi, hip-hop, urban vibe. Oh, yeah, growly. Yeah, oh, sorry, that way around. Go boom, 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 ch. You know, everyone's grooving with the really cool, stuff. Whereas this is like, it's a bit more of a jamboree. It's like, hooray, a tambourine, having a little bit of a party and a sing-along. Isn't that great? And so it doesn't quite capture the gritty street cred of the SP404, but it could be interesting. It could be simpler, probably cheaper. It's got a built-in microphone. It splits things across the pads. You know, you just make some noises, capture some external sounds, and just beat yourself away with the SMPLTrek. You know, it's quite interesting. There's 10 tracks in there. There's a shed load of samples. It's also built for live streaming, so you can plug your phone directly in and go straight from it out into the universe, into your TikToks and your Twitches. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one comes off and whether the kids are taken with this new approach, this alternative way of making lo-fi, hi-fi, any-fi type beats. So ROLI is back. Yes, the same ROLI that went bust a little while ago. Same ROLI that chewed its way through gazillions of dollars for reasons no one can quite understand. They produced one fantastic product and a few variations upon a theme of the ROLI Seaboard controller keyboard that basically gave birth to MPE, in any kind of serious matter. So they made this one thing. It was glorious. Everybody kind of wanted one or would play with one, and it was great. But that's not what they wanted for some reason. They wanted to pour in millions and millions of dollars into making little toy things and little squishy things and trying to get us to learn to play the keyboard and have things that light up. It's like, well, why don't you just stick with the product that's awesome and stop messing around with toys in Apple stores and stuff. Anyway, so they got through a whole shed load of money, forgot that we're in an incredibly niche market, a niche within a niche. MPE soft squidgy keyboards are a niche within a niche within a niche, really. So that world domination is not really what's going to happen. Anyway, by the by, that's in the past now, and they went bankrupt, so they didn't have to pay anybody any money, and now they're back, hooray, with a load more money and a new product. Well, it's sort of a new product. What they've done is they've taken the ROLI Seaboard and they've put little ridges on the keys, because apparently the problem with the first one was that no one ever knew what note they were on, which is fair. It's always a bit difficult playing this squidgy keyboard, and you're sliding and you're pitch shifting and you're forwarding and backwards, and it's actually quite tricky to get your fingers exactly where they needed to be to play just a regular note. It was a bit like a fretless bass or a fretless guitar, a violin even, you could say. And you needed a certain amount of ear pitch kind of savviness to really find where it was the actual notes were that you're after. So now they've put these little ridges on it so that you can feel it with your finger exactly where that middle of that individual note is. It's a good idea. Problem is, I don't think anybody trusts them because of their past behaviour and their difficulty with handling money. That it's kind of, well, I mean, yeah, okay, it's good, but I don't know whether I want to give you money. I mean, unless I can buy it off the shelf so I know that it's immediately available and I'm not, giving you money which then I may never see again, because that's what happens when you go bankrupt, man. There's consequences. There's consequences in perception. There's consequences in what you're actually able to do and how you're able to speak to people. And what gets up my nose a little bit is that they seem to be completely ignorant of that. They don't seem to. There's no acknowledgement that, we really messed up last time, and that's a shame because we've got a great product. So this time around, we're going to focus just on that product. We're going to make it better, and it's all going to be awesome. Don't worry, we're not going to steal your money or anything like that. It's going to be brilliant. So they need to come at us with that kind of attitude, whereas at the moment it's like, oh yeah, we're fantastic, look, we've got a fantastic update to our fantastic product, isn't that fantastic? It's like, no, you need to take a bit of a look at yourself, be a bit more humble But then, I mean, they're just trying to sell stuff, aren't they? So why would they try to be humble? Who knows? I just like the idea that in squishy MPE world that we're all lovely and having a lovely time, and we're not trying to take everybody's money. Anyway, the ROLI Seaboard Rise 2 coming to a shop near you. Hopefully, if they can get it off the ground and get production flowing, and people are actually prepared to invest in this product. So, Molten's hole. What was all that about then? Well, let me tell you, it's a fantastically simple idea that came from Voltage Vibes back to front controller, porting controls from the back of a keyboard into Eurorack idea. I talked about this before, I'm pretty sure, and the idea was that you take something like the KeyStep Pro, you've got all those cables that come out the back, and rather than trying to fiddle around trying to cable those in all the time, you could permanently wire them into your Eurorack by bringing all those cables, sticking them through a gap, and then putting them into the back of a module like this. You see, they all plug into the back here, and then you've got all of those connections readily available within your Eurorack without having to fiddle around the back anymore. It's good, simple, nice idea. It works, you know, nice one. So when I wrote this up, I mentioned in the article that what he really needs is some nice orifice through which to pass the cables. Something which isn't going to get snagged or is going to look untidy or just look like there's cables coming out of your rack out of a gap. So I suggested he put in some kind of hole with a grommet. And I have some here. Yeah, it looks a bit like that. You see? Looks a bit like that. And through which you poke a cable. See how that works? Simple. Awesome. So, I mean, I did a whole video on this, so you can go and check that out, but I just wanted to mention it because I had another little brainstorm with it, and that is to pass through a power cable. Now, why on earth would you want to do that? I hear you say. Well, a number of reasons. I've seen a few people play modules outside of the rack, you know, just to either test something out or to, it's more of a performance controller, or perhaps more importantly, you want to highlight it for a video. And so being able to quickly take something out of your case and power it up is, I think, useful. So I've started doing videos now where I mount a module on a gooseneck arm thing here, you know, out of the system, which I think just looks completely phenomenal. So I'm going to go with that. That's going to be my thing from here on in. And so my cable here is passing through Molten's hole. So it's not just coming out of a gap. I'm not having to leave a gap in my system. I've not got the danger of patch cables falling in it. It's nice. It fits one of these ribbon cables nicely. Comes out. I can then get, you know, whatever module I want to use. Plug this in the back, and I've got a fully powered module out of the case. Brilliant, elegant, lovely. Molten's hole. We all need one of those in our lives. Well, one of the more interesting things that come out of Synthfest France was the FCPro Audio and Mixthesizer. Mixthesizer. Maybe it's that. Who knows? Anyway, what it is a strangely sort of military green looking desktop mixing device for synthesizers. This is something that I've thought about a lot, and I don't understand why there isn't more of it about. But this is a fair attempt at trying to do the thing that's in my head that would be awesome if only I could design stuff. And that's that mixers, commonly, when you buy a mixer, any old mixer from anywhere to use with your gear, it's full of stuff you never use. It's full of all those rows and rows of EQ and stuff and features and built-in effects or this, that and the other. And really, to mix together synthesizers, you just want something simple. You want some faders or some knobs, ideally, something for level control, bit of panning. That's it. That's all I require. Effect sends maybe, yeah, those are always useful. But that is it. So FCPro Audio came up with this mixer, which is a 24-channel mixer, but only in about this much space. And it's knobs, rows of knobs for each one. So like you got 8, then another 8, then another 8. Along with that, it has either Eurorack or big line level inputs and outputs depending on what it is that you want, because the point is that they will build it pretty much to your specifications. So how many channels that you want, whether you want it Eurorack compatible or line level, how many auxes that you want, sends and such like. And around each knob you've got a send or two and a panning knob, and it's very, very self-contained. It's really nice. I mean, it's probably going to cost a fortune if it's configurable in such a way that they will build it to your specification. But they suggest that the one on display, the 24-channel one, would cost about €2,000. So yeah, this is not a folio notepad. This is not a little Behringer mixer. No, this is a proper chunky piece of gear. But I just thought that the idea was nice, and the intention behind it is nice. And for people with big synthesizer studios, as seems to happen a lot now, having something that you can easily connect into that's not going to take up a whole load of your desk space, I think is great. And I think it's cheaper than the Teenage Engineering one. No, not quite. The Norand Morphos is a 3D morphing complex oscillator. Now, do I know anything about complex oscillators? No, not really, I confess. I mean, oscillators are complex enough on their own without getting them more complicated. But I think the basic idea is you have two oscillators, you put them together and make them cross-modulate or do interesting things in interesting ways. That's the basic idea, I think, of a complex oscillator. The Morphos is designed for interesting kind of preset or automated morphing from one thing to another. And it does this through the unexpected use of presets. Presets is not something we stand for in modular. Oh, no, not presets. You can't remember things. That would be nuts. But this has. It's got it built in. And you've got buttons on the front that you hit in order to morphologicalize from one thing to another. So the crazy thing about this is that you could create a tone, a waveform, generate a thing, and actually save it and recall it later. So you fiddle around with your oscillator, you create a bit of a sound, you go, oh, that's nice, I'll save that one in one button, and then you go off and do something else, invariably, because that's what happens in modular, and you create some other sort of thing. So that's quite nice too. Save them both, move from one to the other. In fact, it morphs from one to the other. Flippin-tastic. How awesome is that? Except, or is it actually undermining the very nature of modularizing, where we like the temperance of it. We like how things just disappear. One moment you've got something awesome, the next moment it's crap. Just like that. And that's the kind of the vibe that we like. It's character building. Whereas this is suggesting you could build something nice and then have that nice thing forever. That's just crazy. Crazy, I say. So just a quick one on Behringer then, because we end up talking a lot about it because they've got a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes it's a bit too much, I think, and actually we want to talk about some other things. But this month it wasn't quite as crazy as last month, but they still rolled out a whole load of stuff for us to look at. Things like the Cobol Expander, which is an old French Minimoog type synthesizer. They are ready to go with one of those. They seem to be turning a lot of those little mini synths into Eurorack modules, which could be interesting. And they did a little demo of the space effects, what do they call it? Space effects, 32 effects from Clark Technique, which is one of their companies, in a Eurorack module. Although I would say it's quite a wide Eurorack module and it has absolutely no CV inputs. But, I mean, effects in Eurorack is good. We like that kind of thing. We just like a little bit of control. We like, the whole reason that we do this thing is because we like and enjoy control voltage and controlling things and getting stuff in there. We enjoy that. So releasing a module which doesn't have any of that seems, I don't know, what's the point? I mean, I guess it's cheap. Is that it? I don't know. But there's other things as well. They've hinted at doing the OBX, doing a clone of that. They showed pictures of a completed RS9, which is the drum computer from their RD9, their 909 clone, stuffed into what looks very much like an Erica synth style drum computer. That could be interesting. It doesn't have any sounds, though. It's purely for sequencing. The one thing that I thought was more interesting than all of their cloney stuff was they spoke about a kind of a DSP platform, a software hardware platform onto which they're going to start designing hybrid synthesizers. Now that seemed to me to be, what was that, Behringer? Innovation, did you say? You know, something new, futuristic? Maybe. So they showed this PCB with this display on it that had a bit of an FM synth running on it, and people jumped to the conclusion that they were going to do an FM DX7 clone, and that's actually not the case, although who knows, they might do that. What they were showing was that this is a software platform on hardware in which they can run all sorts of stuff. So you can run entire synthesizers in here. Now it's sort of going, oh right, so a bit like the Zen Core that Roland are doing, which we'll come on to in a minute with the JUNO-X. What I like about the potential of it is that, because, I mean, Behringer has harvested up tons and tons of engineers. They've got loads and loads of knowledge and talent and experience now. So they could build phenomenal things if they wanted to. And that interests me. Phenomenal things always interest me. So it's going to be interesting to see what occurs or what comes out of this, if anything, at all. But as ever, Behringer's just waiting on the chips, as are all of us. Oh, one I didn't mention at the beginning was the Spitfire Polaris. I like Spitfire audio. They make epic, huge orchestral libraries in interesting and exciting ways. Unfortunately, I don't tend to pay them much attention because it's not the sort of thing I write about on Gear News, and so I tend to miss it because sample libraries are kind of like, they're just not very clickable. They're not that interesting to talk about. But Spitfire Audio does some great work, and their latest one, along with BT, the geezer, is called Spitfire Audio Polaris. And the interesting thing about this is that the idea, I think, I mean, you know, it's difficult to wade your way through the marketing, but the idea kinda was to get an orchestra to emulate synthesizers. I mean, this is it, isn't it? You've got an orchestra, you've got a studio, you've got all the people together. What are we going to do? I mean, we've recorded orchestras 100 times now. Everyone has got increasingly bloated libraries of orchestral sounds, all of which sound gorgeous, all of which can allow us to write our own cinematic themes to any TV show or film that comes our way. You know, we've all got this arsenal of extraordinary string sounds and orchestral sounds with which to score a movie. Fantastic. So when you get all these people together, what do you do that's going to be different? So they decided to make kind of screechy noises. I've got a cello, I'm going to play like a Moog. Or I've got a trombone, I'm going to make it sound like a Juno. You know, I guess something like that. However, you know, try not to be too flippant here. Obviously, the result is excellent. I mean, it's superb, as they always are. Epic, cinematic, fantastic. Although it's also slightly cheating in that while they did get fiddle players to make synthy type noises, or at least that was the intention. I don't really know what that means. This is a thing, like I say, wading through the marketing. But also they combined all of that with synthesizers. So the library combines ancient synthesizers with orchestral sounds that are trying to sound a bit synthy, which is then sampled and resampled through old samplers and Fairlights and other bits and pieces to make it sound grungy and interesting. And the result is another huge cinematic library of interesting, futuristic, let's score a sci-fi movie type sounds. Fantastic. They can't go wrong with that, I don't think. Anyway, I was reminded of that because of the Arturia augmented strings. Now, Arturia are releasing a series of software romplers of orchestral, here we go again, orchestral type sounds or realistically sampled instruments that are going to revolutionize your world, of course, like these always do. But with the augmented strings, we're talking about things like immersion, cinematic, immersive, organic, abstract, morphing, all those sorts of things. I mean, we like all of that, as I said. a moment ago. And I mean, the best thing is Arturia releasing a free sort of sampler of their of this new series that they're doing, and so you got a bunch of free sounds. Great. The interface is very simple, which is what we like. You just got a big knob that you turn, and things change. And what I really liked about it, funnily enough, was the tiny animations at the side, because it's got this strange image on the on the GUI. One side there's sort of things which are sort of in a cubist kind of way pulling itself apart, and on another side it's got some string membrane stuff going on, and as you play and manipulate things, they just do small animations. I think that's beautiful. I think whoever it was who put that in it should get an award by themselves. But otherwise you've got the same sort of knobs that you'd expect. You can, you've got depth and density, or range, or softness, or stuff that shapes and then morphs the sounds. And so Arturia hopes that we're going to all embrace this new selection of hybrid, strange, morphing, cinematic, atmospheric, environmental sounds. Good. I mean, keep them coming. Keep them coming. They'll all fill in those gaps, I imagine. Now, Tom Oberheim was fortunately not found down in a bar after having a night on the tiles with Dave Smith from Sequential, but they did seem to have a rocking good time together, drinking shots, smiling, writing things on napkins. Oberheim have got something coming along. I mean, it's been a bit of a roller coaster where poor old Tom has been trying to do products while at the same time as trying to retire and have an easy life, while being given his name back so he can finally call himself again. and so the world has got to the point where we are demanding a new Oberheim synthesizer. There's been some great software emulations out there. There's been the potential of great clones from different sorts of places. But what we really want, we want a true Oberheim, I guess. I mean, that's what people tell me. So they seem to be working on it. I mean, inevitably it's going to be Oberheim and Sequential because they're old mates, and why wouldn't they get together and do something? They did something great with the OB6, which released, I don't know, few years ago now, which was a collaboration between Tom and Dave, released by Sequential, whereas this time I think it's going to be an Oberheim product. Now they've released a tiny teaser which gives us a flavour that we know that it's a synthesizer. It's not a Eurorack module or something else. He did at one time talk about doing the SEM as a Eurorack module, but this looks like it's going to be a synthesizer, and I think really it's probably going to be big. It's probably going to be like an OBX or updated version of that, because really that's what everybody wants. I mean, I spoke about Behringer being a bit bored of the whole analog synth thing and interested in them doing something new and exciting. And I suppose you could say, well, why doesn't Oberheim do something new and exciting? Well, I mean, maybe they would, but they haven't been churning out tons and tons of old tired analog synths forever. They've released a couple, and their pedigree and their legend and their experience is such that it would be awesome if they did something along those lines. People would lap it up. Doesn't really matter what the price is. People would enjoy it anyway because of what it is and what he is and what that represents. It represents an older, a purer time when everyone just held hands and played synthesizers. Oh, those are the days. Anyway, it will be interesting to see what it is that comes out. I'm expecting to see it probably at Super Booth. Korg updated the Volca FM. Volca FM, little Volca thing. FM. Used to be a 3-voice thing that thought it was a DX7, then people went, oh, this is just kind of a bit frustrating because there's only 3 voices. So Korg have released a new version, version 2, 6 voices. 6 voices, you say? I can play a chord, on both hands. That's pretty cool. And it is. It sounds great. It's got a whole bunch of really great presets in there. Sounds very DX7-y, but not in the cheesiest way, in a slightly more progressive and interesting way. I've done a whole video on this, a full video review, so do go and check that out. But the essence of it is that it's not a DX7. What it is a clever use of 6-operator FM that gives you just enough controls on the front to get you sculpting some interesting sounds. So it has, it's got 4 or 5 controls on the front for changing algorithm, and then for changing the envelope on both the modulator and the carrier. Simple sort of macro controls, so you're not having to get down into the nitty-gritty of FM which is always an unpleasant place to play. Nobody wants to go down there. Nobody. But, I mean, if you do want to go down there, you can. You've just got to wrestle with a very simple interface. Or you've got to use some other third-party editor, because Korg, unfortunately, doesn't supply one. But using the controls on the front, using the inbuilt sequencer, potentially, or by attaching a MIDI keyboard, you do get to have a really enjoyable FM sort of time. And it sounds great. It's fun, it's playable, it works on its own. You don't have to connect an editor and then connect a MIDI keyboard and do all that sort of stuff. You don't have to. You just play it as a Volca as itself, and it's a lot of fun to play with. So, you know, don't think of it as is it a DX7? Is it a DX7? No, it's a fun box of FM, which sounds brilliant and can actually run all of the DX7 sounds. You just have to dump them across one at a time from a piece of software. So that's cool. It's a cool box. Go and check out my review. Feedback Modules have released another mixer. It's a mixer very much like this. I have the Mix BX here, and it's phenomenal. It's really, it's the juiciest, fattest mixer. I had no idea that mixers was supposed to add to your sound, the character of your sound, because you're not usually looking for that. I wasn't looking for it when I decided to go for one of these, but it flipping does. Everything you turn up goes deliciously fat and squelchy, to the point that you have to keep everything a little bit under control, or it just goes out there. But they're just brilliant, crunchy. If you're looking for high fidelity cleanliness, then this is not for you. But if you like a bit of colour, if you like a bit of crunch, then yeah, great features as well. Almost like the perfect feature set for me for a mixer, as in mixing. I've got a mixer knob, I've got a panning knob, I've got 2 sends, which is an absolute killer for me. And you've got a little bit of EQ that I don't really care about, and you've got mute switches. That's it. Headphone out, stereo output. It's a done deal. Doesn't take up too much space. Anyway, they've now done 2 other versions, a CR and a KM. Now, they refer to some crappy old mixers that I can't remember or can't quite exactly find out what they are. But they are based on those mixers in order to give you that classic, abusive, slightly overwrought sound. So I think the Mix CR is based on an old Mackie CR desk. And I think the KM is based on the Boss KM60 from the 1970s. But I could be wrong. This is based on a Boss BX8, I think. Who knows? They just sound great. So you should go and get one of those. It's a very useful 6-channel Eurorack mixing solution that you'll never regret. Create Audio are back with a bit of a bang, a bit of a splash. They've got NiftyKEYZ, this huge keyboard that's also a row of Eurorack. Fantastic. It's the Waldorf KB37, of course it is, but it's much cheaper, it's much wider, and it has many more voices. So the problem with the KB37 is that while it looked brilliant and has a very premium feel and keyboard and such like, you could run a row of Eurorack, but you could only run one voice. While it had 9 CV outputs, so you could modulate lots of things, you could only actually play a single voice. And so it became like a really expensive mono synth. Now the NiftyKEYZ from Create Audio is nowhere near as expensive, and it can run 4 voices. So that means you can wire in 4 monophonic voices and play them together. And it has different voice modes. You can play them in unison, in duophonic mode, 3-voice or 4-voice mode. And it gets fascinating because I don't have 4 of anything. I don't have 4 oscillators that are the same. I don't have 4 filters that are the same. So in putting together a kind of a polyphonic-esque synthesizer within this structure, it ends up being something wonderfully weird. Something that should not be put together has been put together, and you are playing it on a keyboard. It's fantastic. It's a great thing. The action on the keyboard is good. It's not a fat R1 like with the KB37, but it's decent enough. I've done an entire video on this one too, so do go and check that out. It's very, very interesting. It's a great piece of kit. Reasonably priced, considering you're getting a MIDI controller keyboard, you're getting a Eurorack case and power supply, and you're getting a 4-channel MIDI to CV converter. Because the other thing is that you can connect it up to your DAW over USB, and you can address all of those voices individually from your DAW. So it's a quick way into sequencing as well. It's a brilliant way to bridge between hardware and software worlds, between hardware synthesizer worlds and modular worlds. It's great for all sorts of reasons. The other thing they've got is something called the function junction. Now this is like a simplified maths, because we've all got maths and none of us understand it properly, whereas this one is really easy to understand. You've got a ADSR at the top. Oh, there it is. You've then got a function generator. Function generator is just like it's a simple envelope with voltage control over that rise and fall, and it's also loopable. That's the idea. So it's like a fun envelope, a quick envelope, which you can then also loop. And it's got an LFO built in, and it's got this strange mixer which allows you to mix all these things together to create interesting outcomes. It's great, it's fun, it's fruity, it's big and brash in your rack, looks great. I've done a video on this one too, so do go and check that out. It's a lot of fun. Making Sound Machines have been working on this little fella for a little while now. It started off as a bit of a passion project, doing something interesting, and it turned into Stolperbeats. It's a just fabulous looking module. I think, as I understand it, the idea is to create a rhythm machine, a pattern generator that works off the grid. Not off the grid in terms of power, but off the grid in terms of quantization. So rather than having everything on the beat all the time, the particular thing that this is interested in is shuffling, is moving, is just being off, is humanization, organic playback of interesting things, and then throwing different patterns at different timings and stuff. Hopefully we'll get a good look at it as Super Booth, I think. So at the moment we've just got kind of a glimpse. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's lots of these LEDs and lights and patterns and stuff, and then there seems to be this other array which is showing you exactly how offset everything is from each other. It just looks great. Because I really like pattern generation rather than having to thump out an entire one step, another step type pattern myself. Because we all kind of know and like the beats that we like and know, and you're more likely going to program the same thing more or less anyway. And so having something which helps with that while doing interesting and exciting things. I'm always up for interesting and exciting things. Elektron has finally released, after lots and lots of leaks and talking and forum posts and thoughts and possibilities, they've released the Syntakt. No, I don't know. I don't know what it is. For some reason, I'm completely incapable of keeping track of what it is that Elektron do or what they're about or what any of it means. I seem to have like a Elektron blindness where all of their boxes just look the same and they all sound the same. I mean, Bo Beats does some fabulous videos on these things, just wonderful. But the box just kind of seems to do the same thing. It's almost like it sits in that same world as Ableton Live does. There's this cliche, if you like, that ends up being in my head that spoils things for me. And for Ableton Live, it's it's the guy with the baseball cap and the laptop, the Apple book, the MacBook, doing Ableton Live with that's all he's got. It's just got that. The crowd's going wild and everybody loves it, and that's fantastic. So there's that, and then in the same vein, you've got Elektron on one of their boxes and a guy doing exactly the same deal. Ruling the house, bringing the house down, everyone on the dance floor, tapping away on a Digitac or now a Syntakt. I mean, I'm sure they're awesome. I'm just not sure that I'm not sure anyone needs me saying anything about it. There's plenty of people who love these things, absolutely adore this stuff, and go fill your boots. Go fill your boots. It just does, for some reason I can't work out why, it just doesn't seem to interest me. Maybe one day I'll have a go and my mind will be open and it will all be revealed and I'll understand what all the fuss has been about all this time. I mean, I don't mind groove boxes. I quite like the Novation circuits. I mean, I love the Quasar-MIDI Revolution 309, of course, but I don't know. So what is it? What is a 12-track thing? I think the last one was an 8-track thing, or the Analog 4 is a 4-track thing. So this is more tracks with a hybrid digital analog engine where it can be a bit of a synth, it can be samples, it can be sounds, drums. and stuff. So, you know, it's like the evolution of the Casio keyboard. Where you play some stuff in. So cool, yeah, moving on. I'm so cool and so old that I had no idea that intelligent dance music was a thing. I thought IDM stood for industrial dance music. Intelligence dance music. I'm not even sure if I'm having my leg pulled by Mystic Circuits and they're just kind of being cheeky and funny about it all. I have no clue. You know, electronic dance music is just kind of that, isn't it? I know, I'm such an old man, and I can imagine now the comments going, how dare you, how dare you, these are all genres, look at all these genres, there's 1,000 genres in electronic music, how dare you just assume it's all kind of the same sort of thing. Oh, it's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, Mystic Circuits have come up with this thing called IDUM, which is just brilliant. I love it. The idea is that it makes intelligent dance music more accessible to stupid people. So, I mean, maybe intelligent dance music is stuff that's just really complex and hard to understand. Is that the idea? So anyway, what they've done is they've got this wonderful looking module into which you pump your really boring sequence and rhythms. And out the other side, it creates a crazy nut version of it. So, you know, you're putting in your simple little beats and bits and pieces out the other, and it goes, wah, burst, ratchet, you know, weird, crazy, fantastic, phenomenal stuff that you can then put into your thing and sit back going, well, look at me and my intelligent dance music. Yeah, everyone's nodding, stroking their beards and going, oh yes, now that's the ratchet chin that I like. Those kinds of things. Oh, look, that's really just off the beat and improbable. Oh, there's another improbable one. Nice. See? Intelligent dance music. What could be better than that? Can I tell you anything more about it? No, I don't think I need to. I think that's enough. Go and check it out. Big dial on the front, dial in your different sort of algorithms for your different sort of things, for the different things you want to do. Generates a load of stuff, triggers, gates, that kind of thing. Fantastic. Yeah, I'd quite like a go. The teenage engineer in TX6 has created some discussion, I think, on the internet. Because it's like, oh, what is it? Oh, it's a really cool sort of this sort of size, pocket operator size, 6-channel mixer. Oh, that's handy, 6-channel mixer. Yeah, I can get down with that. Look, it's got little fader sliders on it and stuff. Great. Right, get one at, how much is it? I'm sorry? How much? Seems to be the general conversation. Because the price is around sort of the £1,200 mark for a little 6-channel mixer. See, but the thing is that people don't quite fully grasp exactly what's inside this thing, because it's not just a mixer, is it? This is teenage engineering. It's also a Lego set. No, I don't mean that. It's also got a synthesizer inside. It's got a guitar tuner, oddly, inside. It has a sequencer and effects. All sorts of stuff going on inside this little tiny brain. And so, kind of quite quickly, that price becomes, well, it is still extraordinary, but becomes less extraordinary, because it is a multifunctional digital device of some beauty and elegance, and I guess one has to pay for premium bits of gear. Is it made of gold and diamonds? No, I don't think it is, but I imagine hopefully it's very, very well made, and it's going to be the sort of thing that people who have an OP1 or an OPX are going to jump on and lap up and enjoy having these designer bits of gear on which they can be creative. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. Go fill your boots. And as you dig into the specs a bit, because you will find that it's actually quite an extraordinary piece of kit. I mean, it's got Bluetooth, so you don't even have to plug your synth in. You could Bluetooth your way in, or it could be some kind of controller. Provides a very high quality audio interface to your computer. You know, the effects, the sequencing, synthesizer inside. It's quite a little machine, really, that I imagine they're doing a terrible job of marketing, because they're just giving you this picture. It's a 6-channel mixer, 1,200 quid. Oh, wow, that seems a little steep. I think they need to expand on that a little bit, sit us down and explain exactly what's going on. The Roland JUNO-X, following on the heels, of course, of the Jupiter X and the Jupiter XM. This is the reinvention or the evolution or the pretend return of the Juno 106 or the Juno 60. There is something about the Juno 106 that has really captured all of our imaginations, I think. There's just something about it. Something, a quality that you can't quite put your finger on, an accessibility, which I think just holds some kind of special place in your heart. I mean, I remember playing one in Rose Morris many, many years ago in Denmark Street in London, and it was just a joy to play. I mean, this is before I understood that it was an awesome synthesizer. You know, I was just mucking about with keyboards in the shop, in a music shop, and it was a second-hand one sat there, and I played it a bit, and it just made fantastic sounds. Fantastic. Then I moved on, forgot all about it. But, you know, I've never forgotten that experience, strangely enough. So there's something special about the Juno 106. So Roland has finally decided to roll out a JUNO-X. Now, of course, this is not going to be an analog synthesizer. This is based on their Zen-Core technology, which they are into and they're going with, man. They're going all the way with the Zen-Core stuff. They are not going to be... They're not going to be dragged into the past to produce an old analog synthesizer that they are well past now. I mean, they don't mind emulating the stuff, they just don't want to build it from scratch. So they haven't. So what they've done with the JUNO-X, I mean, what they've done brilliantly, they've given us the look of the Juno 106. The front panel, slightly augmented with little bits and pieces that have turned up over the years in emulations and in other bits and pieces. Got like the arpeggiator from the Juno 60, although it's a more advanced one really from the Jupiter X, and they've got a proper expanded effects section rather than just the one or two chorus. But on the whole, it captures the look of the Juno brilliantly. Spot on with that. Just one look and it's like, yeah, no, they did that right. Well done. It's not bamboozling you with strange backlighting or added sections or weirdness. It's just straightforward analog synthesis on the front panel. Of course, behind the scenes it's all some kind of digital nonsense, but you know, let's just stay with the beauty of the instrument in the first instance. So what happens then? So in the background you've got a Juno 106 model, a Zen-Core based model, which isn't exactly modelling down to individual components. It's more to do with modelling the idea of a synthesizer than it is to model the actual parts or something. I don't know. Google it. I'm sure you can find the difference between the technologies used in their ACB, their analog circuit behaviour modelling, and their analog behaviour modelling, which is what this is about. But I don't know if I can be bothered to work it all out. I mean, does it sound nice? Yes, it does. Does it sound as precise and absolutely like a Juno? Probably not. But you know, pretty close. So on one button on the front you've got the Juno 106, another button you've got the Juno 60, so you've got all that built in. Then you've got the JUNO-X engine, which is its own thing. You know, the Zen-Core stuff is built on partials and all sorts of layering of different sounds and zoning and cross modulations and, you know, building up huge sounds. They've also got PCM samples in there. You've got all that going on. You've got all of the RD series piano samples in there, and you've got a whole shed load of sounds from the XV5080 expansion as well, plus 90 odd drum kits for a whole rhythm section. So it's not really it's far more than you think, and perhaps not what you were after. But if you're looking for, you know, a big synth and you can't quite afford the Jupiter X, or that's just too big, then this is probably going to sit about right. I mean, it's what is it, 1,500, 1,600 quid? So, you know, not cheap, of course not. I mean, it's a premium instrument, but it's going to give you all of those lovely analog sounds that you like. It's going to give you layer upon layer of other synthesizer sounds, of sample-based sounds, of other ideas, all brought and laid in brilliantly together. And then it's going to give you a rhythm track with drum kits and bits and pieces, and of course you can connect it to the Roland Cloud and expand with Jupiter 8 sounds and with SH101 sounds and model expansions and all sorts of stuff you can cram in there as well. So it's potentially a continually expanding synthesizer experience with a front panel which is, you know, bang on for the Juno 106. Is that good? I don't know. Is it what people want? Some people, a lot of other people are just kind of fed up, I think, with Roland, because they could, if they wanted to, do proper analog synthesizers, but they're just not interested. They want to do something else, and I think we have to accept that and move on. And for my money, the Zen-Core stuff sounds great, and I think perhaps the JUNO-X is the most perfectly pitched version of that Roland have done so far. DivKid's got another module out. It's releasing it today. In fact, as I'm making this video, it's called the Stereo Strip. So I can reveal it now because this isn't going to come out. I've got loads of editing to do for days probably. Stereo Strip is what it's called. This is it, made with FLKey. You can tell, can't you, by the look of FLKey. And what it is, it's like a channel strip. So you stick stereo signal in, stereo signal out, and in between you've got a 3-band EQ, you've got level control, panning control, and a mute switch. Simple. That's simple, except it's not just that. There's a whole load of other things going on in here as well, or at least a whole load of other things that you can do because this is modular. Behringer, you're listening, this is modular. So you don't just do the thing, you do the thing and then you stuff a load of control voltage possibility into it, and that just opens it up enormously. So what have we got going on? Voltage control panning. You can make stuff go round your head, and that's just brilliant. It sounds phenomenal. It creates all sorts of rhythms and pulses and bits and pieces. It's just brilliant. Just that feature I really like. It has control voltage over the level, so it's essentially a stereo VCA, and you can use it as simply as that. It will also take CV, so you can run different signals through it, and then use the panning knob to move from one to the other, potentially in interesting ways. You can use it as a mono device, mono to stereo device, or 2 mono devices, provided you don't mind the EQ and panning being over the same stuff. The mute switch is momentary, so you can do a little bit of performance with that, and it can accommodate all sorts of different envelopes because DivKid thinks about what you actually need, and that level knob can be set to accommodate whether it's a 5 volt, 8 volt or 10 volt envelope. So it's a very smooth, very competent module. I've done a video on it, yes I have, and you can go and check that out, where I dip into it a little bit, but then of course DivKid's done a video on it which really, I imagine, nails it a bit more. But it's fun. I really enjoyed what it could offer. It has some great saturation and distortion in here. If you push it too far, which is nice, it just gets really, really juicy. You can also plug in external synthesizers and bits and pieces, or like the output from the audio interface in there as well, because it has switches to switch between line and Eurorack level, and that switch becomes the boost switch for Eurorack, which sends it into this wonderful distortion, as I say. So it's a very cool module, like it a lot, and do go and check out both mine and DivKid's video all about it. The lovely Tim Shoebridge has got another voltage modular module out. This is PolyChain DIY. He's a genius, this fella, absolute genius. I mean, a little while ago he did this pressure polyphonic generator thing, which essentially took any MIDI keyboard and enabled it to run polyphonic aftertouch, which is just brilliant, into any synth that supports polyphonic aftertouch. Suddenly you could do it. You didn't need to have the ROLI thing with the ribbed what's it. No, you could do it from any keyboard. Just phenomenal. And he runs that piece of software within Voltage Modular. Don't get distracted by the fact that I said that. It's just a platform that runs the plugin that you can run as a plugin in your DAW. The new one he's done is PolyChain DIY. And this allows you to polychain any synthesizer you like. So polychaining is when you get a pair of, Craves from Behringer, because Behringer like polychain a lot. A pair of Craves, pair of Neutrons, pair of any of their things, put them together, and you've got a duo synth. Put in 4, you've got a 4-note polyphonic synth. Use 8, and you've got a proper polysynth, because it chains these synthesizers together so that you change the parameter on one, and it's changed on all of them over MIDI, essentially. And so when you play a MIDI keyboard, all the notes are properly allocated and it becomes this polyphonic experience. It's quite clever. There are a few synths that support it, but not that many, unfortunately. But also, are you really going to buy multiples of one synthesizer? I mean, you could buy, for instance, 5 Pro 1s and kind of call that a Prophet 5. Sorta. So that's the idea. And so Tim posed the question, well, why can't we just do this with any old synth? Why does it need to be from a particular manufacturer, and why do you need multiples of just one and not have different synths all working together? So he then solved that problem and has produced this software thing that you connect to all of your synthesizers. You set them up and allocate them voices and positions and bits and pieces, and then you can use a single MIDI controller to play all of them. play all of them at once as if they're one massive polyphonic synthesizer. Then through clever MIDI mapping, you can map a single set of controls to control all of them. This assumes that they all have MIDI controllable parameters and that they are the same doing a similar thing. Although they don't have to, of course, they can be doing whatever the heck you like. But it just opens up a massive amount of potential to putting together synthesizers in ways we hadn't thought of doing before. Phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. You know, it's like $39. It runs in voltage modular within your DAW. As long as you can connect the synthesizer to your computer via MIDI, it will work. Just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And finally, sadly, it's time to say goodbye to Mutable Instruments. This is the rather sad news that Emily Gillett at Mutable Instruments has decided that she's had enough. That she's finished her mission of what Mutable Instruments is all about, that she's put enough modules and Eurorack and love out into the world, and that it's time for her to wander off and do something else. Yeah. Fair enough, I suppose. The legacy of Mutable Instruments is huge. I don't think it can be measured. It's extraordinary. It's brought a sort of level of aesthetic and grace and care into the Eurorack community that just wasn't there before. You know, Eurorack can often become a bit of a boys' club, a bit of a, yeah, it's all black or it's all silver, you know, it's all one thing. It can be all a bit brash and bold. And the Mutable Instruments stuff has just always been beautiful. It just sits there, it looks different, behaves differently, it offers extraordinary creative opportunities and interesting things within your rack. And there's never been anything quite like it, and I don't believe there will be either. So, you know, it's a great loss, I think, to the Eurorack community on one hand, but on the other side, you've got to do what you've got to do, you know. And Emily, you've got to look after yourself and fulfill your own dreams. There's no point trying to fulfill ours. That's never going to work. So Mutable created clouds and rings and beads and marbles and all sorts of fascinating modules that we've all really, really enjoyed over the years. And whatever it is you do in the future, I wish you all the best with it. And you know, and there's no way that your stuff is going away, because brilliantly you're allowed it to be open source, which means that other people can build modules with your firmwares and with your software. So it will always be part of Eurorack. There will always be versions of your stuff out there for us to enjoy, which is fantastic. So thanks very much for all of it. You're amazing. Right, that'll do. That's enough. That's enough of me running on, I think. Cool, blimey, that's just gone on forever. That's another massive month. And next month we've got flipping Superbooth to contend with, so that's exciting. So Superbooth, I'm going to be there on the Saturday. Got my flight booked, my hotel booked. Going to be there Saturday night, leaving at lunchtime on Sunday. And so if you're there, come and say hello, give us a wave. Quite happy to spend a moment with you, acknowledging each other's existence and then shuffling off shyly after not really finding anything to say. So I'm looking forward to meeting lots of people, to seeing lots of gear, and generally having a good old time in Berlin. But before then, this weekend, this Sunday, 8 o'clock, we will have our regular live stream, our post-Molten Music monthly live stream. So do come along on Sunday. We can talk about all this stuff or some other stuff and see how we all are, have a beer, and have a really lovely time. That would be great. And then the following Wednesday/Thursday, I'm going to be tackling the Erica Synths sequencer, the EDU DIY educational sequencer build. So on the Wednesday night, we're going to do the breadboard build, which I understand requires 2 breadboards, which is rather exciting. So we're going to breadboard it on Wednesday, talk about it, work all that out, see if I can get that to sort of work in some kind of fashion. And then on the Thursday night, we'll do the soldering and put it together. So that's the plan for next week. Do come and join us if that interests you. Otherwise, always good things in the channel, more videos on all sorts of stuff. I'm still getting on. I've got all sorts of things in here to talk about, all sorts of fabulous ideas for videos. And if you like what I do, then do consider coming along to Patreon, pay us a couple of quid, join us on Discord, and become part of my little community of enthusiastic Molten people. That would be great. I would love it. But otherwise, please subscribe, share this video about the place, tell everybody how awesome these things are so that we can build a massive community of like-minded Moltenettes. That would be awesome. And in the meantime, go make some tunes.